Alex Miller, LiftLab app, AI strength training with Chris Duffin, Kabuki, and training champions. In this episode, I interview British strength coach Alex Miller, who shares insights from his journey working with Kabuki Strength and Chris Duffin in developing the first ever AI app for strength coaching mechanics. Alex is a coach, strength scientist, and systems architect whose work combines biomechanics, physiology, and adaptive programming. Drawing on models of fatigue from Noakes, Marcora, and Enoka, he develops falsifiable stress indexed frameworks for training that have been applied to multiple world record level athletes. Let's put that into Damien's words. What that means is him and Chris, the co-founders of LiftLab, have developed the most amazing app that analyzes and fixes your biomechanics.
Former New Zealand Special Forces operator.
He is the mind behind LiftLab, a platform that unifies neuromechanical profiling, force vector taxonomy, and autoregulation with real-time data for velocity tracking and pose estimation. He also develops CueUp, an open source engine for automated exercise analysis and program generation. Grounded in critical rationalism, his work treats every prescription as a testable hypothesis, bridging sports science, philosophy, and engineering to advance evidence-driven strength training. The conversation emphasizes the importance of sleep, simple nutrition, and foundational fitness, while also highlighting the value of critical thinking and continuous learning in the fitness industry. Alex also introduces upcoming education resources for coaches and athletes, and we also spoke about, and read below, conditioning for first responders, physical preparedness, sustainable training, lifestyle factors, the school platform, monthly books. I hope these highlights spark your curiosity and entice you to dive into the full episode. Alex's journey and insights are truly inspiring. There's so much more to explore in our conversation. Connect with Alex on Instagram. He's under Coach Alex LiftLab. The link is below, and so is his web link at liftlabapp.com. Thanks for watching.
I'm Damien Porter, former New Zealand Special Forces operator, subject matter expert, and the How Not to Die guy. And you're listening to my podcast, Straight Talk Mind and Muscle. This episode is proudly sponsored by these guys, State and State for Women, because aging is inevitable, but how we age is a choice. State is the ultimate daily formula for optimal health and longevity, backed by clinically proven 100% natural ingredients that's designed to support hormone health, stress resilience, energy, and performance. And I use it every single day. And a special thanks also to my new sponsor, Michael Mason and the Mason Survival Protocol. Links to both of these are in the show notes below. Catch all my past episodes and resources in the notes as well. Thanks for watching. Now let's get into it. And we are live. Welcome to the Straight Talk Mind and Muscle podcast. Welcome to my guest. This is an interesting one. Alex Miller, you're, I believe, over in Asia, but you're a Brit. That's awesome. Welcome to the show.
Hey there, man. Yeah, I'm currently in Kuala Lumpur right now. I'll be in Chiang Mai in like 2 days. So yeah, traveling around a bit.
Oh, it's nice with gentlemen's hours. Normally it's people from the States or the UK, and the time frames are early morning and late night. So it's interesting chatting. I got to know you a little bit, and I'm going to get to know you a lot more on the show. I thought we'd kick off with the simple question: what's it like to work with one of the world's strongest men, Chris Duffin, aka the mad scientist? That's how we sort of connected. I'm really intrigued at what it's like being around that environment, what you're learning, what it was like at the start, what it's like now, and just how it all kicked off.
Yeah, so I think the easiest way to talk about this is to go through like my process of moving into Kabuki, which is where I first met Chris, and then how it's evolved from there. Because that kind of contextualizes it a little bit. So I was a coach in central London at that point where I applied for Kabuki, and it's important to know I took like a 60% pay cut to go to Kabuki.
And let's just, what is Kabuki? Because Chris and I didn't touch on it too much. Kabuki Strength, I'd heard about it, but for listeners, what is Kabuki Strength?
So Kabuki was I always regard it as an education system and a training system where the key concepts or the key interventions that one might make for a coaching solution or potentially even a rehab solution if you're working within that population was slightly different from what was the norm at that time.
Yeah.
So I was first exposed to Kabuki in 2009. And so, because I was one of the first, I think it was the fifth athlete that Chris and Brandon Senna at the time ever worked with. So they were my coach, like when I first started lifting.
Yep.
And then I circled back round in 2021 to apply for that role. Yeah. So they had a slightly different idea, which was very based upon movement principles, which we didn't really see elsewhere. Okay. So I took that big pay cut to move to a company which I perceived to be ahead of everyone else. I perceived it to be this kind of place of excellence and learning and to potentiate a better or more educated future for myself. Yeah, and so and that kind of encapsulates what like Chris represented, which was this I guess fountain of knowledge. Now, I would want to be clear, like Chris isn't the only amazing person who was at Kabuki. Like the whole team is incredible. Okay, and still is, just the separate environments. But Chris is obviously one of the key drivers of that theory.
Yeah.
Now moving to the company, there is, and if you've spoken to Chris about this, I'm not sure if you have, a facilitation of kind of excellence. Like everyone who's worked there has gone on to do really good things. Like I think everyone who's in the coaching department there has, for better or worse, been influenced by Chris, and now they're owning their own gyms, or they have their own companies, they have multiple different companies, or in my case, like us continuing to work with Chris and having multiple companies on the side, you know.
Yep. That's what I was wondering about, and that was my idea. And I get to know guests and find out things on the show. I do a bit of research, but it's really organic what we do, Alex, on the show. And that's my thought with people like that. When you work around them, same thing was with Paul Check back in the day. I mentioned that with Chris. You know, the people that would actually go to his place in San Diego, and yes, it's been surpassed now, but when they went to his place in San Diego and worked with him, that mirror neurons, the rubbing off of the knowledge, you said center of excellence, all those things become part of you. And it's almost like those 5 people you associate most with, you become. And Chris, you know, anybody that hasn't listened to his book, please do. I figured he would inspire at least, and that's paraphrasing what you've said.
Yeah, so it's a rising tide, right? Like if everyone's doing well, and I'm really big on this, I think like everyone in the fitness industry should aspire to be great, because not only do we lift each other up, like, and this is really important for coaches, people coming up to be coaches. Like the more you know, the more money you can make, right?
Yeah.
And like I hate to bring it back down to that because it should be more, but like, dude, we gotta pay rent. You know, you gotta have food. Like you just have to be able to charge money. So the better we all are as an industry, the better perceived the industry is. This applies to physios as well. Like some physios are just absolute junk. You know, the better everyone is, the more money the industry's worth.
Yeah, agreed. So you were an athlete before. We spoke about rugby just before offline. You've gone to Kabuki, working with Chris and the team. What are you doing now? And the reason I'm asking that is because I want to go down our angle, which is conditioning for high performing people. So what are you doing now? What's you mentioned different companies and working with Chris still.
Yeah, so I guess the biggest and most exciting thing right now is the app that we're creating. So the LiftLab app, which I think you've mentioned. I think you said you're quite excited. Have you tried it out? Did you get a code for that?
Alex, I got the code, and then I got the injury at work at a rescue. I injured my back, so I'm just about 5 days out of pain, and that I love what the app is, and I'm actually going to be doing that as part of my comeback. So yeah, I'm excited for it.
Keep me up to date of how you're doing on that one, especially how it modulates the back stuff, because there is a return to play protocol inbuilt.
Great.
It's just not labeled that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd be interested in that one. Okay, so the app it's the app based upon my programming style. Okay, which is very heavily influenced by the Kabuki style, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of it's an algorithmically or AI kind of driven system which learns a lot about the person based upon there's a lot of anthropometric data collected at the start, and then I'm trying not to like make it sound smarter than it is, and I'm trying not to dumb it down at the same time.
Yeah.
It takes a pose model, so it takes a picture of your body.
Yeah.
And it can tell you how you're moving from that, and then the implications of that are then fed back into this programming algorithm, and it
So
will
would that
change
be
the programming. Yeah.
for a dumb soldier like me? Sorry to all the soldiers listening, as I put that on myself. Is that like taking a picture of me and going, this guy has a certain length of femur, length of torso, and therefore you're going to squat and bend in this way versus a 6'3" guy?
Yeah, that's part of it.
Yep.
But it's more to do. It's more so it will take it into account, but that's not important, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's important because it changes the kinematics. It changes the way the movement looks,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't necessarily change how the movement performs. Because what we really care about, and we'll touch on this when we talk about training for first responders and whatnot,
Yes.
it's the level of output per joint, which contributes to the output over the entire system, which matters.
Wow.
Right. So if you, and that's important for the carrying stuff, right? But if you think about your squat, and you might say, "Hey, are you a short levered guy or a long levered guy?" You,
Exactly. Short lever here.
yeah. So you probably have a really nice upright squat, right? Which means that, well, maybe I don't know,
My
but which
squat, my
means
squat
that
looks like a Japanese bow. To be fair.
really, dude, send me a video of your squat, and we'll see if we can like tidy it up a little bit.
Yeah. Great.
Because it might be, and this is the point, that even though you're squatting with short femurs, which would precipitate a upright squat normally, if you're weak around the knee, you're always going to bend over more
Right.
because you're going to sit back into those muscles to make the movement easier. Because
Yes.
humans are inherently lazy,
Yep.
right? So you're always going to use the strongest muscles to do the work. So if you're really strong around the hips, you're always going to use the hips. And the app will see that and it will change the programming to develop your knee extensors.
Wow. That's
Isn't
phenomenal.
that
That's
cool,
that's
right?
the soundbite right there, Alex. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really, I'm super happy with it. It took a lot of time to figure out. Um, but yeah, the program will sort itself out. So you'll end up having like movement correction based upon long-term change in the muscles of the body.
That's brilliant. And the irony of this interview and what you said before, have you used the app yet? So I got injured bending over, getting for one of for layman's terms, the jaws of life out of the truck. We had to rescue this girl who'd crashed into a tree. That's another story. But the on muscle analysis on biomechanical analysis by two separate people in two different cities, it turned out that my glutes were both weak and imbalanced, and that caused the lower back, those ligaments and connective tissue to be overstrained. And the irony is, for the listeners, I probably could have corrected that if I'd had that app working a few weeks earlier.
Yeah, it would touch on that. You'd have got the information.
Yeah, wow. I'm excited to use it. As excited as I was when I interviewed Chris, and I'm really interested to see how it pans out. Um, Chris explained it. It literally checks, it tests and measures your rate of force production during the rep, if you're slowing down through the set, and adjusts through the workout as well.
Yeah, I can probably clarify that a bit more in the context of this. So there's two concepts which we're playing with here. One is the link between the speed of movement and how kind of close it is to your daily performance. Because we all know
Right.
like the most you can lift in one day is not the same.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's days like you've picked up the load of that Jaws of Life for forever.
Yep.
Right. And it just happened that on that day it was just a bit too much.
Yep.
Right. So we have a difference in daily max. And that's what the velocity in the app will kind of take, and it will prescribe loading based upon your daily movement rather than some arbitrary, hey, I hit this once, 6 months ago.
Yep.
Kind of movement, because that's just silly, and it takes that every day, so it was super cool. And the second part is when we're talking about weak points in lifts, it's the slowest point in the movement, right? That makes sense, because you're saying, okay, well, speed is force output.
Yep.
Okay, and when the force output is 0 or is equal to the weight of the bar, you stop moving. That's your slowest point.
Yep, of course.
Okay, now that sounds right, but it's not. And I'll quickly explain why. Because what we really care about is when the bar starts slowing down, because that's the point you start like losing force output. It's not necessarily the hardest mechanical point, and that's where the weak point is generated. So that's what's taken into account.
That makes sense, and I can relate that to when I actually did my education. They used to talk about 100-meter sprinters. It's actually not the fastest person; it's the person who decelerates the least who probably wins.
Yeah.
So yeah, you work through that weak point. You'd be fast for longer, and you probably win that race.
That's the exact thing. But if you can stop that bar speed hitting 0, then you never miss a lift, because the bar's always going up.
Gosh, amazing. Hey, thank you for explaining that. The app, it's going to be in the show notes at the start, but it's in beta testing now, and it's the LiftLab app. Is that going to stay that title when it launches properly?
I assume so. I try not to have too much to do with the front facing part of things. It's not really my forte. I assume it's going to be that. The guys who are running that side of it have just had hats made, which say LiftLab. So I assume that's what it's going to be.
Awesome.
Yeah, it should be out Thursday, actually. This time next week, it should be live.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, well, there we go. So listening to this, that would have been live for a few weeks, depending when the show comes out. Well, let's move on, Alex, to what you wanted to speak about, which is great. And I thought it was a really interesting topic, which is conditioning. And that's a broad word. Conditioning for, use the word first responders. I thought that was a great word. Police, fire, ambulance, and military. I bunch them all together. Now, for context for listeners, be sucking eggs for you, firefighting is one of the toughest physical jobs known to humans short of combat. That's a pretty tough statement. However, think of this, team. You go to work, you put on 25 kilos of gear with loaded extremities. That means heavy boots, and means pressurized things in your hands. I have 20 kilos jaws of life in my hands, where you have a hose that's got a lot of pressure. And now close your eyes, because that's how you work in a fire. And people don't realize that. And please go back and listen to that, listeners and viewers. Now close your eyes, because you can see about 1 foot in front of you. You can't see what's going on. You're feeling your way with your feet. You're feeling your way with your hands. You're on your knees. Sometimes that search when you're going through a house is on your tummy. You're on your hands and knees on your tummy, even searching for the babies and the people stuck in the house. So that's a pretty extreme job. That's one. Now, I've been a policeman as well as a special forces operator, as well as a fireman. Police, you're cruising along in your car, and that's as sedentary as it gets. And then you've immediately got to get out and do your fastest sprint speed ever. One I had exactly was we were on the police bikes, the push bikes. It makes me laugh every time I think about the movie with that. But we'd gone to this guy at 7 o'clock at night. We'd been told he'd been assaulting people, air quotes assaulting, and we've found him. We stopped there, and a minute later, long story short, he sprinted off, covered about 90 meters in 9 seconds. And you do the math there; it's pretty quick. He'd had a point, they called it a point of speed. He had an amphetamine beforehand. That's why he sold to these people. He took off really fast. So I've gone from just talking to someone literally like you and I are, I think my hands are even like this, to sprinting at full speed and ran him down. Now, that's the nature of these things. You could be cruising along in your ambulance, and suddenly you got to get out and run to an event. And military is pure combat. So conditioning for those people is really, really interesting, because you've got very unconditioned people, you've got highly conditioned people. Given that context, I've really painted the picture for you, Alex. What are your thoughts on conditioning for that? Where is your headspace at now for that genre of people?
Yeah, I mean that's super interesting. You're a real public servant, man. Like, you've done all those good jobs.
Born to serve,
Okay,
apparently.
so yeah, so let's quickly like contextualize this by saying the mental strength aspects of this we're not going to touch on.
Yeah.
Mostly because I don't think it's a thing outside of the dissociation in combat. So in combat, you might have a dissociation from what you're doing to like how you feel about it, because like you just have to do it. Apart from that, I think mental strength is basically a level of preparedness, i.e., physically prepared enough to do it. Because if you can't generate the output, like if you're not physically able to do it, no amount of wanting to do it is going to help. That's
Yeah,
just kind of my
well
thoughts. So
said.
I don't want to talk about that because I think it's really relevant. Okay, in all those situations that you've spoken about, particularly like the fire one, because it's crazy. I saw a video the other day of a training exercise for a rescue where you had to follow the hose blindfolded.
Yes.
And I was trying to figure like how hard that would be. And I was basically came to the fact like really hard and I don't want to do it. That's kind of where I got to on that one. No matter where you are, you have a level of energy that you have to be able to generate to do the job. And that's going to change,
Well
right?
said. Yep.
So it might, and so this is how I think of things. I think things, hey, is there enough energy being produced to carry out the task demand? So I did a lot of math like a couple of weeks ago, which worked out how much wattage you'd have to be able to output to ace the American Army tests.
Yes.
So I know you had to be able to produce X amount of watts for 12 minutes to run like an 8-minute 2 miles.
Yep.
Right. And that's the long and short of conditioning. Okay. So conditioning is being able to do a given task.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're thinking about, hey, I need to be conditioned for my job, what you're really saying is, can I sustain an output required for that? Now, we can talk about that in terms of physiological systems. We can say, okay, am I able to actually pump enough blood around my body to be able to utilize the oxygen in a way which can make force output happen? And then we think about limitations on that. So when you think about cardio, you think about high intensity versus low intensity. However, when I think about cardio, and this isn't like this is just a different way of viewing things. It's not right or wrong. Okay. I think about, am I getting enough oxygen delivery? Am I getting enough oxygen utilization? And am I able to use the respiratory muscles in a way which facilitates those two? And that gives me basically bottlenecks to open, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because if I say, okay, well, I'm running, actually, I'm not going to say running because I don't really do a lot of running because my knees hurt. If I'm cycling, my legs get tired before I get tired. That makes sense. So I get a pump, yeah,
Yeah,
which is what happens to a lot of like.
That's a common thing. We often say legs or lungs.
Yeah, and you want it to be lungs, right? Because that's, if you're doing like cardio, you want your cardiorespiratory system to be the limiting factor. That's where you want to have the stress on,
of course.
right? So I know that my limitation is actually getting the oxygen to the muscle, right? So I'm a delivery limited athlete. So I can then focus my training upon the physiological adaptation, which is driving that. So it could be like vascular proliferation, like getting more blood vessels there, or it could be just being more efficient with my heart. Maybe my stroke volume is a bit low.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that's kind of how I would think about that. Or we have the other way around, where we're just not producing enough force, and then we might need, okay, well, it's the oxygen utilization aspect which is wrong, and then we can target all our interventions based upon, hey, how do we get more out of the oxygen we already have? And that turns into high intensity stuff, right?
Yep. That makes
So that's
sense.
kind of how I picture that part of it. And then we have the strength aspect, or the low, so talking like in physio terms, like low tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is what happened to you with your back, right? Like your tolerance for the day was just a little bit low.
Yep.
And how do you bring up low tolerance? It's just doing shit over time.
Yep, exactly. Progressively, safely.
Yeah. I think, we definitely do it safely because we have this idea of chronic versus acute loading. Would your listeners be familiar with that?
What was your exact question there?
Would your listeners be familiar with chronic versus acute loading?
I was just getting the accent.
Oh,
I'm
sorry,
tuning in. They wouldn't, I'd suggest. So I always want to often translate for the listeners and the viewers. So yeah, can you explain that chronic versus acute?
Yeah, so chronic loading is your average loading over a certain time period. The research is over like a 10-day time period. I tend to go 14 days because no one works on a 10-day cycle.
Yep.
People just because we're just sociologically kind of driven to 7-day cycle. And acute loading is your loading on a given like moment. So if for you, like you went and deadlifted, I don't know how much you deadlift, let's say 500 pounds, okay, on one day, and then but you've only deadlifted 250 pounds leading up to that.
Yeah.
There's potential that even if you had the absolute strength to do it, it would overload something else just because you're not prepared enough. So it's
That's a
chronic
great way
load we want to build up to.
Great way of saying it. And you know, for a guy lifting for many years and highly likely a lot of listeners, it's called exercise, not exercise, as one of my Delta Force buddies often says. But the ego gets in our way there, where that's where programming correctly can take the ego away from it. Like, let's be clever over time, increasing, sticking to that, the deloading, sticking to the progressive overload, rather than just going in and going, right, I'm going to do a huge bench press, a huge lift, and then of course you stepped back so far because you've had to recover from that injury.
Yeah, like the regression you get from injuring yourself, it's just wild. Especially like neither of us are getting younger, man. Like if I hurt myself in my 20s, like it's not a big deal. Yeah, I'm probably okay in a day or two. But like if I hurt myself now, like even if I just like pull a muscle in my back, like I'm out for a week and I'm miserable.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It takes so much
It's
longer.
just not worth it. Yeah, I work with a few older athletes. I got a guy who's he's aiming to break the 70+ world records. And like if he gets injured now, like that's him done. Like he's not lifting anymore, you know?
Yeah.
It's a
So hard
really
to come
big
back from.
deal. Yeah.
Let's talk about the conditioning for that community. It's probably the best way to say it. Because you said some great things. You talked about aerobic endurance or the ability to actually utilize your fitness and of course your endurance there, and then you talked about strength. But let's talk about practicality. You got a cop who needs to be functionally fit. You got a firefighter. When do these guys fit it in? Now, people have a laugh. There's some fire stations, sure, they're super quiet, but some of those fire stations, particularly the ones in America where you see, they're very busy. Where do these people fit strength training in? So are they going to, I'm just throwing it out there, is your workout a 2-hour workout, or is it something they can fit in and be smart, fitting into their day, fit into their week, not overstressing their body? How do you program that in?
This is a great question because I think people underestimate how busy a lot of these people actually are.
Yeah.
Like we're living next to a fire station right now, and I can tell you, like it's going off all the time. Like I don't reckon there's a 2-hour period where there's something's not happening.
There you go.
I think we should touch on lifestyle factors before we do that.
Yeah.
Because you can raise your tolerance load or your tolerance threshold level by just looking after yourself. Like if I had to pick one thing that I've focused on this year to make my life better, it's like quality of sleep.
Yes.
Okay. So I've like got my eye masks and I've got my earphones and stuff. Like I like pamper myself for bedtime, because doing that allows you to get more out of less. We're looking at what do you call it? Force multiplication, right? But you're getting more out of less work. So if you can like dial that in, especially on like your off days, say you're on like do you do 3 on 5 off or anything like that?
I've got the most common firefighter shift, which is 2 days, 2 nights, 4 off. But if we're looking at this population, your cops that do 5 days earlies, 5 days afternoons, and 5 days nights. It's all over the place, to be fair. And really, it's about manipulating, getting back onto the normal way, normal cycle of sleep, and being clever when you're having a reverse cycle, which is what we call it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, so looking after those aspects first. I know. So my younger brother, he's a cop. He does the firearms response where I'm from. He like does all the training for that.
Brilliant.
And he says the best thing about being promoted in the police is that you come off the shifts. He said the shifts really kind of messed him up. He wasn't, and he did it for years, obviously, to get to that level. Yeah, so I get that in line first, and then when you talk about training for this, we end up putting less pressure on, do you need to be stronger? Okay, because there's becomes a point where the return on time investment, it just isn't worth it. Like how many, like take the UFC for example, just because it's a nice analogy, like how many of those guys do you think deadlift 500 pounds, even at the top level?
Oh, hardly any.
Not yeah, not a lot, right?
No.
But they're the best athletes in the world.
Yeah.
All up there. So the chances are, if you're a fireman, do you need to spend an extra 3 hours a day in the gym just to get like a 505, 600 total? Like probably not. So you can spend your time being smart about what you're doing. And in terms of conditioning, in terms of do we have the ability to sustain what output over time? You probably don't need to do too much. Like we can sustain that with half an hour, like 3 times a week. And I know that sounds crazy. It sounds like underwhelming, but if you have the base of support there, then you can do a lot with what you've got. If I was working at population, so with the military that I work with, their conditioning stuff is basically, hey, just get outside and walk. Like just do half an hour. They're based in Australia. Those ones are based in what's that town in the middle of nowhere? I completely forgot. Pardon?
Townsville, Perth, or Sydney?
No, it's like it's in the outback. I can't remember what it's called.
Wow.
they're like right out there on a base.
Yeah.
And like it's like, dude, just get outside and move around for like half an hour because everything else you do is so goddamn stressful that like it's okay just to get that. And because we're talking about, hey, building the aerobic system, too much stress is going to develop something else. Like, because most people aren't fit enough to run. I know that sounds nuts, but it's not if you're saying, okay, well, I want to develop my like CueUp. So stroke volume and cardio stuff is either peripheral or central, right? Stroke volume is how much blood you can get into your heart. So how do we have the ability to expand the ventricles in the heart? Well, if you're doing really hard work and the heart has to pump really hard, so you're over a certain blood heart rate, you're not allowing your heart time to relax, and you're just kind of working it. So we're like, I'm not saying you're hypertensive with your heart, but like it just doesn't have the chance to relax. So maybe you want to just chill out. Maybe you want to just do very low intensity stuff. And a lot of people just aren't fit enough, myself included. I mean,
it makes me think of the math method of things, a very clever, a huge base before you get into the harder stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a really big deal. And I think as well that if you're thinking about going into these kind of service jobs, like you should be training before you go.
Oh
like,
yeah,
because no one goes into like the fire service without having wanted to do it for a significant amount of time.
yep.
Yeah, and same thing with the military. Like people know they're going to do that. Like we're past people going, I don't know what to do. I'm going to go to the army. Like most people know that's what they want to do, and you should be building that base up before you get there.
Definitely. I just looked at a quote this morning or last night from a Green Beret saying selection, and there's selections for all these. You said fire service is a selection process, is testing, whatever you want to call it. Still a selection process of who's capable. Well, selection isn't a test of where you are right now. It's a test of everything you did to get there on that day. It shows what you're capable of from what you prepared, and you've got to go and over prepared for special forces for sure. That's my own personal recommendation.
Yeah.
Interesting you said sleep, Alex. My interview with Chris, he's an incredibly cerebral guy and knows all these one percenters. And I asked the question for the listeners. I said, look, with all the stuff without losing the forest for the trees, what are some low-hanging fruit you can do to get someone fitter, stronger, and so on? And the first thing he said was sleep. Very first thing. And Dr. Kirk Parsley, very famous now former Navy SEAL, and he was a head doctor at Warcom in the States. He teaches sleep. Sleep is what you do to recover from the day's activities before. Unfortunately, we can't recover 100% because that's called aging. If we could recover 100%, you would not age. Yeah, but it's what you do to recover. So really interesting. You said the best thing you can do is work on your sleep. You also said pamper, and I love that you sort of said that. When I teach sleep, I say to that grown up that's having problems, say most of them are mums or dads. You know what it took to teach your baby to sleep. Now we're going to do the same thing. So you said pamper, bath, bottle, nice, cool, nice dark room, cuddle, bed. Same thing for yourself. You don't put the baby, you don't put Rambo on after you've smashed a whole bunch of junk food down the baby's mouth. That's not how it works. We need to pamper ourselves and treat ourselves like the baby because we're the same human inside, and that sleep is going to help us recover so well.
It's such a big deal, man. And like, I think particularly in like a hyper masculine environment, people don't like the idea of pampering themselves. But I do. Life's hard enough. Like there's much harder things you can go and do in your own time. Like when you got to sleep, you got to sleep. You got to really work on it. That dark room's a big deal. Like sleep hygiene in general.
Yep.
Like just massive. It's just huge.
It's so easy though. A blindfold, literally $7 from China, versus the expensive American ones. You put a blindfold on that's complete blackout, and you're gone. Have the sleep routine. It's brilliant. Now you're talking to someone who there's only about 15 of us in the world. That's quite a small cohort now I think about it. The scientists from UK, US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, so Oz Kanzukis, and USA, came to New Zealand and studied us. They sleep deprived us for 5 days. They wouldn't let us sleep. And there was teams of 4. They gave 2 a placebo gum, and they gave 2 of us caffeine gum. Luckily, I was on the caffeine gum, and it was a caffeine trial. Yeah. I was so glad I was on it, and I thought I was. I found out afterwards I was. They found that on caffeine gum we were combat effective. That means 98% kills in the kill house, 98% combat effective for 36 hours without sleep. Whereas the other ones would drop off after 18 to 19 hours. After 18 hours, you're legally drunk. And we can perform. We're picked for that ability to perform without sleep and high stress and so on. But when you can, get the best sleep you can so you can recover and perform. And if you can't, it's like I said probably 15 minutes ago on these shift patterns, use the things to flick you back into those routines. You may need to use that caffeine to keep you awake for the first night shift. You may need to use some melatonin and some full sleep stuff to put you back into that sleep routine. But yeah, without sleep, you can't perform effectively, and it's the number one thing we do to recover.
Did you ever go through nap protocols? Because I know, like, I'm big on napping. I nap every day, and I know when Chris was doing his big 1,000-pound free deadlift stuff, he was napping like in the office as much as he could. Did you guys go through like how to nap?
So interesting you say that. At SASR here, the Australian SAS, they have sleep pods. And the written rule, I think, was if someone goes in one of those sleep pods, you don't be the ego-beating alpha male and say, what are you doing, you lazy bugger? It's time for sleep. I personally have got two nap protocols. One would be like a caffeine nap or a little rest nap.
Yeah, 20-minute kind of thing.
Yeah, go to sleep, and I'm just resting the brain. I'm pausing the brain from working. It's a light sleep for about 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Or I've got a full 90-minute sleep cycle, give or take minutes on each side for different humans. A full 90-minute sleep cycle to help me recover in the day. So if I only got 7 hours, I'm a bit old, I'm 51. I'm tending to get 7.5 at night now. Where's my 8.5, 9? Well, I can get that in the day somewhere if I'm clever and get an hour and a half in the day.
That's interesting. I have the exact same thing. And if I do a short nap, I have a coffee before I have that nap.
Yep.
And then I'll feel better when I wake up. I had another question about your sleep stuff with the caffeine. Did they ever give you modafinil or anything like that?
No. So this was in 2000. it's crazy. I've actually got the paperwork I signed to do the study just over there. It was in one of my memory boxes. And then later on, I looked at the PubMed of us in it, the PubMed study. They only measured caffeine versus non-caffeine, and it came on to be Stay Alert gum they gave to the pilots and other special forces. And now I just heard Joe Rogan's got neuro gum or something like that. Some kind of gum that Joe Rogan has endorsed in some way. It's a big money spinner now.
Yeah, I can see that. I think there's I don't I'm not big on like chemicals, like taking stuff to work, but I do see the efficacy of it. I just don't see the long term. I'm not sure about the long term stuff. So like where we're starting to see um research come out and saying, hey, this is the efficacy of microdosing mushrooms, for example.
Yep.
Like, and people saying, oh, it's great, it helps me. I'm like, well, tell me in 20 years and then maybe I'll take it. But like,
Yeah.
I can see like maybe some of those like harder drugs like modafinil or something being super effective, but I'm just not sure of the long-term kind of benefits of that one.
No, I'd be the same. And also going back to my nature sort of caveman hat, um, all those things rev the system. And
Yeah,
I'd never
exactly.
forget when I was a young boy, Dad, I'm going to put a bigger engine in my race car. And he goes, well, now you got to get bigger brakes, you got to get better suspension, better tires.
Yeah.
It revs the system. And I know for a fact that when you take something like modafinil or those other things, uh, it burns through
Yeah.
like a fire of the choline in your brain, and there's acetylcholine in your brain, so you got to take choline to bring that back. So it's revving the system up, so you're going to pay a price, but it may be useful for some person as a tool at some time.
Yeah, I mean the sensitivity to acetylcholine or the loss of acetylcholine esterase, which is what breaks that down. So if you think about Jordan nuts, there's a disease, and it stops you producing the stuff which breaks down acetylcholine, which basically is the same effect as sarin, which is absolutely wild.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it's my dad actually suffered from it, which is what led me to like it to understand it or to learn about it. But like that's how important like it is. Like if you don't look after like your neuroreceptors, it has the same impact over time as like a very selective nerve agent, which is absolutely insane. Like that's how important it is.
Yeah, the brain is, our human bodies are so fragile yet so resilient. It really blows my mind and brings me back to that Kirk Parsley that he invented his sleep remedy to get his Navy SEAL buddies off sleep drugs and
Mhm.
antidepressants. Now, his sleep remedy only has 300 micrograms of melatonin, the same amount your brain produces. And the reason for that is if you take a high dose of melatonin for a longer period of time, it blocks those receptors and it can actually make you insomniac. So how about we stick with nature and then maybe use these things
Yeah.
as tools when we need them?
Well, we should have touched on this before when we spoke about sleep, which is like the manipulation of the nervous system can be super powerful, right? Like just learning how to breathe in a way which down regulates like autonomic response.
Absolutely.
It is a key. Like I know if I so I before I go to do my naps, I'll box breathe.
Yep.
But and to kind of what box breathing is, it's just like a set length of time to inhale, hold, exhale, hold, and it down regulates the nervous system. And it helps, even if I don't go straight to sleep, it helps push yourself into that recovery kind of neurological state.
Well, I mean, you've used some big words there, and I'll use the basic soldier's words. Um, as a firefighter, I remember at this firefighter school, you've only got a certain amount of air on your back, and you can't see inside a fire. And you said that you said that person followed a hose in to go rescue, I'm assuming,
Yeah,
another firefighter, and
yeah, it
that
was,
person
yeah.
was blindfolded. Well, that's the world you live in. If you get separated from a point of contact with the wall and you don't know where you are, you might die because you're going to run out of air. And in fact, that's happened to many firefighters. The first one ever was in England. That's why they set up certain procedures for when we're in BA, which is breathing apparatus. Anyway, if you start to run out of air and you're lost, you don't start running around trying to get out of the building. You sit your butt down. How hard is this? Surrounded by fire. Sit your butt
Yeah.
down and chill out. And you can make that 10 minutes of air, if you do it right, last about 45.
Really?
Yeah, really.
That's
So
amazing. That's
and,
absolutely amazing.
and the box breathing you said, you breathe in for, you said certain amount of time. Let's just go as a number for the listeners. Breathe in for 3 seconds, hold for 3 seconds, breathe out for three, hold for three. You're breathing in for 3 seconds and you're not getting oxygen in your mouth for 9 seconds. And that little robot in your brain says, hey, Alex isn't breathing for 9 seconds. I better slow him down because we don't have that much air. And it's brilliant. It bypasses any psychology just by physiology, fancy word there, your body being in charge. It slows you down. It switches off that fight and flight system. And you said that repair system, it's brilliant for getting out of that. We used to do combat breathing on the way into target on choppers, before you're in the kill house, before you got to do any crazy things. And it just brings us back to our nice flow state, which you need to be in.
Yeah, I can totally imagine that. It's cool that you touched on that on the down regulation part,
Mm.
because um you can also use that to improve your conditioning. And it's like I don't like the idea of hacks, but this is kind of a hack. So what you're saying is, when your body's been told that, oh, he's not breathing for 9 seconds,
Mm.
we've got to slow things down. Well, the mechanism isn't how much oxygen, it's how
No,
much carbon dioxide,
you're
right?
exactly
That's
right.
the factor. So we're getting an increased, like, or a decreased pH level in the blood, which is what's sensed. Now, if you're limited by carbon dioxide, but you can get used to that, we call it carbon dioxide tolerance.
Hmm.
If you can get really good at holding your breath and increasing the level of carbon dioxide in your blood, you get a little bit more time before your body kind of shuts you down, be tired. So there was a research article done on rugby players. And if your conditioning is pretty good, I'd encourage you to try this out. And what they did, they had the players fully exhale and then hold their breath
Hmm.
and do, I think it was like a 20-second max effort on a bike,
Oh,
like a
wow.
resistance bike.
Wow.
Yeah. And then they take a break, and they build that up over time until it was a total of, I think it was a total of 4 minutes of 20-second breath holds with maximal effort stuff.
Wow.
Um, and they saw a massive improvement on performance of their all their fitness metrics. Even though they didn't really get fitter, they just got better at tolerating that carbon dioxide. They did a similar one for swimmers as well. I'm less cool with that because I don't think you should be doing maximal effort breath holds in water. Like, I don't
No.
think that's the cool. I don't think that's cool. But I've done the bike stuff with some pretty good level CrossFit athletes, and it works really well.
What a clever way of doing that. It reminds you of a professor used to say, when there's a marathon on and there's the two guys within sort of 50 meters of each other, it's actually the person who can take the most pain that's going to win. They're both just as fit. They can both win, but
Yeah,
who can take more pain? Which you've just given an actual action of how to train for that.
yeah, it's cool, right? It's like there's so many. Like, I wish I'd come up with this stuff, but I didn't. I just read a lot of books,
Yeah,
like.
well, it's funny. Was it Steve Hansen or some other guy? I say, I'm 51, I'm still waiting for the wisdom. I've got the age, but I've come to think that wisdom is just knowing a bunch of knowledge from other people and putting it together and hopefully be able to action it or verbalize it or share it with others like we're doing.
Yeah, I had a chat with. How active are you on that school group? I mean, you're relatively active, right?
Relatively, yeah. So, look, for the listeners and viewers, after I interviewed Chris, who I didn't know anything about, I did some research and went, this guy's a bit of a big
Mhm.
deal. Did the interview and then read his book, and I was like, this guy is a big deal. So there'll be a sequel. Um, I paid the money to join the community that you've got, the school, SKOOL, and I paid money for the programming and so on. It's absolutely brilliant. I love the community. It's so much better than social media, but there's information there straight away. And the library you've got there is phenomenal. Library of resources for all things strength, injury, rehab, and fitness related.
Oh, it's great to hear, man. So I was talking to one of the guys on there, and we were talking about the value in just learning a bunch of really disparate things, like learning things and tons of stuff. Because the real innovation, and until there's a paradigm shift in knowledge, is going to be combining or like smushing together different genres. And I think that's really like wisdom, is able to connect the dots of different things to make sense of a situation.
Absolutely. But where it can go wrong, gosh, this is getting into more of a discussion than finding out stuff from you, Alex. Is somebody like Huberman, Andrew Huberman. Um, look, is he a ophthalmologist, PhD?
He's a neurologist, yeah.
Neurologist, yeah. Well, when he goes and starts talking about things that is well outside his education, he's connecting the dots wrongly in many, many cases. In many cases,
Yeah.
in some cases, it's quite good. It's great when he interviews other people that are actually experts in that field. But many cases, he's connecting the dots horribly wrongly. Then you got to get someone that is actually an expert in that field to come along and correct it for us, because you'll then go, Andrew Huberman's a PhD. That doesn't mean an expert. It means an expert in one thing or a few.
An appeal to authority, right?
Yeah, and we like authoritative people, but it can also go wrong when people connect those dots incorrectly, and that's really interesting. And I think you got to be clever at who you choose to mentor from.
Yeah, so I'm not a huge Huberman fan for that exact reason. I think we need to be careful when we put people on a pedestal like that. So I've got this kind of phrase, which it's not like a motto, it's just something I think is really important, and it's that we should listen to everything but believe nothing. In that, we should always try and like I want to be able to listen to everything. I want to be able to listen to you talk, and I want to be able to listen to human talk, and I want to be able to go through all these different things. But then if I don't go away and critically think about it and be like, hey, like, does that sound right? Like, does it, like that taste test? Like, is that about right? Like, then it's not worth anything. It's just noise. So the idea that we got to be able to filter out noise, and that's got to be the modern way of thinking, because we have access to more information than anyone's ever had.
It's
But
that's
a
an
lot of it's
understatement.
junk.
An understatement. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I use ChatGPT quite a lot just to bounce ideas off, and some of the bullshit that comes out with, like, that is wild. And like people will take it as gospel, and it's just not. Like, it's
No.
good, but like I have a passing interest in PEDs. Now I don't take anything. I've been clean my whole life because I was drug tested for a long time. But I just think it's really neat that you can use drugs to do cool stuff to the body. And so I was asking ChatGPT about like what it would suggest as a PED cycle, and it gave me something which it was so it was dangerous. It was like super dangerous. It was all of the most androgenizing drugs put together. So androgenizing is all the ones that enhance masculine features, but also the ones that give you all the problems. There's all like the liver toxicity, the nephrotic damage, the chances of getting like prostate cancer, and it just shoved them all in one box to take. And it was like taking it was like 500 milligrams a day for some stuff, which is a too much.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so like you got to be careful with where you get your knowledge from, and you got to be able to veto it.
Exactly. But that said, the knowledge nowadays is also great with people. I interviewed Scott Stevenson, a bodybuilding
Really?
professor. What a great thing to have. Mike Israel, a exercise science professor, but essentially a bodybuilding professor. He'll come on soon. You actually get access to these people. Nick Gill, the All Black strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah, I do.
Rather than, when I was at university, you're reading a paper from these world experts and you've got to write a letter to them, 20, 30 years ago. You do have access to these people on the internet with their actual knowledge. What I find is most of them, they simplify it too, Alex. They don't try and show how clever they are, which Huberman does tend to do. I'm not hating on him. I'm just saying be clever and take what he's good at and use that, neurology. But these people, they simplify it down. Nick Gill, what a clever guy. He's been the strength and conditioning coach for the All Blacks for 13 years, maybe longer.
It's forever, isn't it? Because he was there with when Conrad Smith was tearing it up, and Conrad Smith was playing for a good 20 years, wasn't he?
Conrad's been, he was the first All Black on the show.
Really?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to have to go back and find that one because he's a fascinating guy.
Nice guy. We spoke about, and this is for the listeners as well as you, we spoke about transition. My hypothesis was, my idea was that transition from saying being an Olympic gold medalist or being TJ Perenara and Sam Cane on Saturday night to the next day retiring could be harder transitioning than a veteran soldier because you've gone off that pedestal. But he's talked about mental health with the All Blacks and so on, and his attitude going into the game was great. So it's a great show to watch. But yeah, access to all these people, they tend to simplify it down really, really well. Mike Israetel, highly educated guy, loves the sound of his own voice. He's such a funny guy, but he'll dumb it down or simplify it down. Chris Duffin, hugely educated guy. He went to sleep, sunshine, movement, nutrition. That was it. Do those 4 things, and movement. It could be weightlifting, it could be walking, like you said. Keeping it simple, because those low-hanging fruit, if you don't do those, then you're a bit about PEDs, you're a bit about acetylcholine. They're just 1%ers. They ain't going to help.
Right?
Yeah, you got to do the big things first. So that said, let's try and summarize conditioning for the elite operators, for the first responders and so on. What would you summarize some low-hanging fruit that a cop listening to this who doesn't train, but maybe has been in a situation where he had his ass handed to him, or she got freaked out because she realized, she was in a fight that she was gassing out. What is some low-hanging fruit for these first responders that you could give them to go and practically put into their lifestyle to make them better?
That's a great question. So keeping it super simple and low hanging. One, get your basics done. And by basics, I mean food and sleep.
Right.
Okay. Done that right. Second thing, in terms of actual training, it doesn't need to be hard. I would get a heart rate monitor, which is either like $60 or your Apple Watch if you're fancy and have an Apple Watch. And just do work 3 times a week, half an hour, 45 minutes, and just keep it less than 145 beats a minute. Okay. And if you're consistent doing that for a long time, you'll be so much fitter than you were 6 months ago. It'll make a huge difference.
I'm going to pause you there, Alex. On my phone here, I've got a text message that I received about 25 minutes ago from a policeman colleague and friend of mine. And I did this advice with them 3-4 weeks ago. And I checked in with them this morning. That's why I got a message back. And you know what I told him to work on? Let's get your sleep right. Here's your nutrition plan. And it literally was protein, veggies, and some carbs, fruits, whatever it is, real food. And I want you to keep a hold of your step count. I want you to get your steps up above this. So literally, me communicating with this guy here is exactly what you said to do here, and we haven't pre-discussed it.
No, it works, right? You can't argue it. Like it's almost actinomic. It works. And then if you want to do some extra, go and do some strength training. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be anything like that. Just pick up something heavy a bunch of times, put it down again.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And that's super important, because the thing with these podcasts, I've got to think about from the listener's point of view. You're a very educated man, and I'll get very educated guys on this and girls, but we've got to give them action steps, not just talking about it. We've got to action it, and that's something they can definitely put together, those 4 points. Get a heart rate monitor, do work 3 times a week, 30 minutes to 45, keep it under 145 beats, and then if you've got time on top of that, lift some things. Of course, the first things are get your food right and sleep right, because if we're eating junk and we're eating on the fly, it's just not going to serve us well at all. We're going to feel terrible. So that's great. You've almost touched on mental health, because all that stuff makes you feel better, and then you're going to have a nice attitude as well.
Being fit and feeling good is such a huge benefit for that. But I remember, so I've played a lot of positions rugby. At reasonable levels, I played in the wing and I played prop. Right.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's a rare combination, right?
Hey, John. The only other person I know is John Alima, who did that.
Yeah. Jonah, I've met Jonah a few times, and like I can see why he played prop. It's a big team. Well, it was a big team.
He was a prop in
Yeah,
sevens when he started sevens from league.
yeah, yeah. And being so I was about 260 pounds when I was playing prop. And like, dude, I just felt shit. Like walking upstairs was a hassle.
Oh,
Like my knees hurt. And, like it just wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't good. Like being in a good shape is a huge, huge part of feeling good.
yeah. It's interesting you play to that. Again, back when I was at university, they told us that props and hookers and Olympic lifters could beat any sprinter off the line for 50 meters.
Yeah.
That was an arbitrary number, but 50 meters, but they couldn't hold it. So they would be faster off the line. And often you see it with people like Dane Coles, the current All Black hooker as well. I can't remember.
Yeah. So, well, outgoing, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. But these guys, they can accelerate, but they can't hold it. So what a
Yeah.
clever idea to go from that, drop the weight, work on everything else, and then become a winger. Because
Oh no, I went the other way around. I was a winger
did you?
first. Yeah, dude. So I'll tell you what happened. So I played rugby. I was a winger. I was about 95 kilos as a winger, and I could run 100 meters in like 11 seconds on the head,
Gosh,
basically.
that's close. Johnny's was 10'8".
Yeah, I was about, but I'm only five. I'm like 5'10". I'm 176 centimeters.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm a little bit shorter. Um, and then so I did that. I played rugby then in New Zealand, and I went to university. Um, Played rugby through university because that was the condition of my scholarship. Um, and I took a bit of a break, like maybe 2 years. I focused on training, like getting stronger. And I went to my local rugby club, and they were out of props, so no one's playing props. I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll just play prop, and then and that was like that was quite a low level. That was like national three in the UK. So like if you take it'd be like national one, championship, premiership, international. So it's like level five. And when I did that, my first game at prop, most proper game prop, was against Cornish Pirates, who are a championship side, um, which is like the level below the premiership. And they were like, "Oh, this guy's first game prop. He's doing okay. Well, like we'll take him on as a like a maybe we'll get him in there." So I ended up playing prop for a couple of seasons just on the potential of like getting another contract. And yeah, it was shit. It was really hard. Really hard.
I want to throw one last question at you, and it's getting your opinion
Yeah.
um, before we finish up. And it's post-sports career. That's the start of it. I'll contextualize it. I watched Eddie Hall just this morning. He went on a carnivore diet for 3 months. He dropped a ton of body fat, felt better. Before that, he'd been on holiday and eating cakes and all those things. It wasn't so good. That was an example of going from overweight to probably a much better weight with abs for a strong man. But you see a lot of these sports people. Let's talk Andrew Mertens, All Black first five, is quite a lean guy at that time, and now he's not. A lot of the I'll just use rugby as an example, and
Yeah.
I think the same thing happened with Jonah and some former Olympic sprinters. But after their sporting career, they really get out of shape. And I spoke with a girl yesterday. She would in her say childhood days, but probably 16, 17, 18, 19. She's doing 2 or 3 sports a day, um, very fit, and now she's like 92 kilos. That's no, she's well over a weight that she says she should be. She's about 22 kilos overweight. After these sporting careers, the question I want to ask you is, why do you think that they get so unhealthy? And two, what could they do to reverse it? Because they can't go back to the career. They've stopped that career. So
You
why do you
don't,
think
yeah.
why do you think they blow out so much? And what can they do to fix it?
This is actually a really important question, and not just for athletes. I think it applies to a lot of people, particularly guys these days. And it's a lack of direction or purpose.
Oh,
I think um having a sport in your life gives you a ton of purpose. Like, because if that's your job and that's your livelihood, but you only have one purpose, which is to win the game, right?
mm-hmm.
Or to win an event, and that gives you an easy drive. And when you lose that, like, how do you then regain purpose, or how do you cope with being lost? And
Mm-hmm.
people don't cope well with being lost, and we see this with ex-military as well.
Yeah.
Like, there's some really big issues with people not having direction,
Oh, yeah.
and I think a lot of it. a lot of people cope with food, at least in that sense, if we're looking at that issue.
Right.
And to refind purpose, I don't have the answer to that. Unfortunately, I wish I did, because I would be able to help a lot of people. Um, but I don't. I legit think that's the biggest reason that people lose direction, and it's really hard to find direction, particularly in a society where so much is given to us, like just without having to work. I think having a something to work at makes it easier to be a good human, which isn't probably what you were expecting me to say, but that's my own stance on that one.
That's a good answer, and I really mean that. I've got some examples of where that's proven. If you look at SAS, Who Dares Wins, or SAS Australia, uh, you got Ant Middleton, Ollie Ollerton, and Foxy there, and those guys lost their purpose, particularly Foxy and Ollie. And Ollie's been on the show, which is great, and Jason's coming on soon. Um, and they lost their purpose coming out of special forces. So much so, both of them were suicidal. Particularly Foxy literally tried that. Um, but getting their purpose of training people on that show and then getting through that more and more, you see them getting more and more in shape. And actually, Foxy is now a role model for fitness, and so is Ollie, which is really interesting. Um, that's a great answer that they've lost their purpose. It's not easy to find because that's your singular
Yeah.
thing. For me, my losing purpose, identity, and connection, those three things, that three-legged stool. I've talked about this on a show with Todd Bowler, a former SWAT officer for 13 years here in Australia and 23 years in the police. You lose those three things, and you're not going to be on this earth for very much longer as a male.
Yeah, lost. Yeah.
As a male, you're gone. But
Yeah.
purpose, identity, connection. But purpose, it's when you said you use the word find, I do the how not to die guy stuff. That took me a long time to figure out that it is a passion. Yes, I'm a fireman. I absolutely love that job. But for 4 days a week, I'm not. And I've got to have some purpose. And it's tough to find, Pat Mack that I've spoken about a couple of times, basic dude stuff. If you Google that, anyone, he's got some great videos. He's writing kids' books and doing kids' short
Yeah.
things. I bet when he was, operating behind enemy lines in Eastern Europe, which he did, and in Afghan and so on, in Iraq, he didn't think he'd be writing kids' books, but
Yeah.
he gets a lot out of it. Um, so purpose is not easy to find, but it's something you've got to try and figure out. That
Yeah,
makes
for
sense
sure.
rather than just, okay, here's a nutrition plan, here's a training plan, actually starting with the mental side of things.
Yeah, and I don't talk about it too much because I'm not an expert, but like that's what that is. Also, I think it's probably worth reminding people, and you touched on this like by saying you're a fireman, but that's not your purpose. It's like
Mm,
what you do isn't who you are, like, or at least it shouldn't be, right? So like my girlfriend, incredible lifter. So she was ranked in the top four in the world for a long time.
wow.
Yeah, like incredible. Because she's just an amazing athlete. I mean, she's an amazing person, but I've got to say that. Um, but she stopped lifting when we started traveling. We've been traveling for 4 years now,
Yep.
and dude, that's been tough because her identity was so ingrained in being this incredible athlete,
Yep.
right? So just remember, like, what you do isn't who you are. You can find a purpose without having to make it your income.
Yeah, tough one. Easy to say, but you've got to work around that, and you've got to self-reflect as a person and finding out what works. And talking with people, I think, as a male will help a lot. Exposing yourself to a conversation like this, exposing yourself to Conrad Smith's conversation, which was a great show, and many, many others that I've spoken to. But I definitely recommend for the listeners and viewers out there, if you're in that space right now, is talking to people, because in your own little world inside your brain, you're not going to figure that out as well.
Yeah, I mean, soundboards, like having people to bounce ideas off is a big deal, really big
Yeah,
deal.
absolutely. Alex, that's brilliant. We've covered off the couple points I wanted to touch on, which was really interesting and a lot of knowledge there. Um, where do people go to find out more about you or to get in contact with you as a coach? We've got the narrator's show notes at the start, which will have the links, but listening now, where's the best place people can reach out to you?
Um, I generally don't have people reach out to me too much, honestly. It's not because I don't like them. It's just because I like to do things really in depth. So I guess if people want to have a chat, then they can just hit me up on Instagram, which is, I should probably find this out. I don't know off the top of my head.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
That is a
you
rarity
know,
in this modern world.
I I'm not really big on social media. Like, it's
Good.
really useful, but it sucks my time out, man. Like, I just, if I get into it, I spend too much time in it, and I don't do
Well,
other stuff
it's
I should
created
do.
for that. What I love about the school app, and maybe that's where people can go to communicate. We communicated with real conversations. Everything that people are saying there, which is not a lot, is of value. And the school app was, I thought if I wasn't marketing on social media for How Not to Die Guy, I'd just be using the school because that's things that that make my life better.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe the school thing is the best way to contact me. And if they really want to, they can have my email address. If they hit me up on Instagram, which is Coach Alex Kabuki, I think. I just looked it up. Um, yeah, and then they just have my email address. They can email me.
Yeah,
That's
I'll
probably
throw
easy.
it down. Let's talk about that app. Just or the school thing. That's Chris Duffin's sort of creation, but you're a coach in there. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Chris built this up so he would have somewhere where we could provide our educational content. So
Yeah.
we didn't touch on this, but I was the head of coach development at Kabuki, which is basically meant I was the guy who was in charge of making sure the other coaches were on point. It was quite an
Right.
easy job because everyone was amazing.
Yes.
So I didn't actually have too much to do. And we're trying to leverage my knowledge in that environment as well as school. Um, it's really good. I'm learning a bunch of stuff from it. I think it's absolutely worth getting into. There's some, I think it's probably a good case of learning how to veto information as well.
Mm.
Like, so sometimes we have conversations where there is multiple different perspectives. Um, some of them are great, and just because there's multiple perspectives doesn't mean that they're all right or wrong. Um, but people like Anthony, who's in there, incredibly intelligent guy. Like, I'm learning a bunch of stuff from Anthony. So I'd highly recommend people getting that for sure. And it will also be, and this is probably a bit early to tell you this, but we are working on getting a monthly book out to people, just like a 50-page thing. So, like, for example, I wrote one on power training for athletes over 40. We got one about BFR training, which is extensive and probably a little bit too long. But like, yeah, it's good though, really good information. Particularly on novel ways to use BFR versus blood flow restriction.
Yep.
And you'll actually get those, they'll just come to you in your inbox as an insider member. So that's something that's cool that's happening now. So tons more education content coming.
Yeah, it's a great resource with of actual usable knowledge and very skilled. I really enjoy it. So I'll put the links to the school um, platform there and links to the LiftLab app as well. So thank you, Alex. Been great to chat and get to know you a bit and share your knowledge with the listeners, which is what it's all about.
Yeah, thank you, mate. It was good to have a chance to talk to you about it.
Yeah, awesome. All right, my friend. Well, I'll leave you to it there. I'll hit pause, have a quick chat, and we'll crack on.
Sweet. Have a good one.
Thanks for watching. I'm Damien Porter, former New Zealand Special Forces operator and former Australian police officer, and your podcast host. Please check out my new project at hownotodieguy.com, where I teach everything you need to know to both males and females, at-risk populations, schools, kids, and the elderly for self-defense, situational awareness, and all-round skills that every good person should know. Thanks for watching.